Our first topic. Lucasfilm had Star Wars Celebration this weekend, and I didn't care. Like, it was better than some previous years, but at the same time,
Yeah.
I feel like the franchise isn't in the best situation right now, and this Star Wars Celebration didn't do a whole lot to win people over. That being said, at least they had some stuff to talk about. They decided to announce 3 new movies, and I'm going, some of these are new things, but also the 3 movies that they announced feel like the safest options in the world, except for one. I'm going, stop trying to make fetch a thing. Stop trying to make fetch happen. So the 3 movies that were announced at Lucasfilm were one directed by James Mangold. It was also clarified that weekend by James Gunn, a different James, that James Mangold is in fact writing and directing the upcoming Swamp Thing movie. So yes, we just don't know which one is
Cool.
coming out first. I'd imagine Swamp Thing over this because that got announced first, and I just feel like this is longer off. But James Mangold, not Gunn, Mangold, the director of Ford v Ferrari, Logan, The Wolverine, he's going to be directing the first Star Wars like prequel-ish story of the first person to ever experience the Force, set 25,000 years before Episode 4, and I just go, that is a good idea. That's the top idea here, because
Yes.
we're not gonna shoehorn in Yoda here. We're not gonna shoehorn in other references. Potentially, there could only be one Jedi here. I would love that. Or I don't know what Disney wants to make their new canon or whatever. In a perfect world, because there's always two. No more, no less. I would love it if there's 2 siblings. One discovers the Force super quick, and the other is bitter that they haven't found the Force. And that's the origin of the dark side, is an unnatural force, a perversion of the Force,
Yeah.
of an anger coming out of the Force. I'm going, I don't know if that's the route they'll go, but going, ooh, a very, very prequel here. That's probably a safe option here. The next will be, I don't know if they said a director for this. I don't think it's Dave Filoni doing.
Think it's Dave.
Is Dave Filoni directing
I'm
this?
almost certain it's Dave. I'd have to double check, but yeah.
Supposedly we're getting a movie that is the culmination of the quote-unquote Mandoverse, which I shudder hearing that word. It just sounds gimmicky. But basically all the stories revolving around the Mandalorian will culminate into one big live-action movie. So Mando seasons 1 through whatever, Ahsoka. I feel like there's some other show that might tie into this. But, as we'll talk about with Ahsoka, it is very, very evident who the threat will be. And I'm going, yes. But this just makes sense to me. It feels like things have been building bigger and bigger and bigger. I'm just more surprised that it's going to be a theatrical released movie, just because it kind of, I don't want to say goes against the sequel trilogy, but it's like Disney almost going, yeah, we know what you actually wanted with the sequel trilogy, and we kind of dropped the ball, so take 2, but with different characters because we aged out the other ones. And then lastly, here's the stop trying to make fetch happen. This was blatantly a Kathleen Kennedy pick here. We're getting a movie following Rey as she rebuilds the Jedi Order 15 years after the Rise of Skywalker. Now, I've said this before. Daisy Ridley is a phenomenal actress. She's a great ambassador for the brand of Star Wars. She puts up with so much crap that fans throw at her that's undeserved. That being said, Rey is one of the single most uninteresting characters in all of Star Wars. I think every single sequel character is almost better than her. Kylo is the actual main character of the sequel trilogy because he's written more interesting, more complex. Finn, even though he got his knees cut out from under him, is a more interesting character. Poe is a more interesting character. Rey is unfortunately the product of checking things off a checklist of we need to be able to sell toys, we need to market this, we need to show that we've evolved with the times instead of, focusing on creating a good character. Could this be a redemption for the Rey character? Who knows? Maybe. It's just like we've moved away from the sequel era, I feel like. Can we stop revisiting this? But it feels like this is very much a Kathleen Kennedy digging her heels in one last time before she's not there anymore. Just going, you will like Rey. Rey, Only a select handful of our audience will get this, but I don't care. Rey is the Roman Reigns of the Star Wars universe. They keep shoehorning them in to places that they don't really fit in terms of fans will love this person. We need this person to be loved by the fans, even though they really should have turned into a bad guy years before they actually did. I've rambled enough, Josh. Of these 3 projects, how would you rank your excitement levels here?
I think it's definitely kind of the same way in which they announced them, with Mangold's first Jedi story, then the Mandalorian's culmination movie, and then Rey's 15 years later kind of film. Partly because, at least for me, I got, that season of Korra that has a large section of it that is all dedicated to the first Avatar. I get that vibes from this, of like, oh, okay, cool. So we're going to see like how different the galaxy was back then. Like, I think maybe that's something that I enjoyed about the Light of the Jedi book, is that it is set in this time before even the technologically advanced people that we see on Star Wars aren't as advanced, and like there's not even Bacta tanks and stuff like that. So it's like, I'm very, very curious. Like, is this a world before space travel? Is this a galaxy before, like, what does the galaxy look like before the Sith and Jedi Wars? Is this the movie that leads up to that event? I'm super excited about that. I think it is something that is not safe, but is fresh and interesting, and a timeline which I am very interested in. I think we haven't explored enough about. Culmination of the Mandalorian saga, I agree. It is feel a little gimmicky as far as when they get a culmination of the Mandoverse. Little annoying, but with that being said, it's really cool to actually probably get like a 2-hour movie as the culmination. To be fair, after Last of Us giving us an hour long episodes, getting 30-minute episodes kind of feels cheap. Kind of feels like I'm getting cheated a little bit, for better, for worse. But yeah, I'm excited that it's getting a film as the culmination. Tells me that it's going to be a really big deal. And then maybe I'm definitely not as bitter about the Rey stuff as you. I at the very least, at least they're going forward in time, so we can have some change, some stuff, maybe some stuff can be a little different. To me, this is another opportunity, and I'm choosing to be optimistic or positive here.
At least one of us has to.
Yeah, and partly because I think being negative here doesn't do anything. It doesn't help at all. I think this is a second opportunity, outside of the expectations of the sequel trilogy, to allow Rey to become her own character, to be her own person, and not be so attached to the names. This gives an opportunity to explore Poe a little bit more, maybe actually leaning into the hints that they gave in Force Awakens with Finn. I would be totally okay with that.
But see, here's the problem that I think we run into. I think Daisy Ridley's Rey is the only one coming back for this, just because, unfortunately, due to just the lack of direction for the trilogy, but also fan reaction, a lot of the actors in this, including Daisy Ridley, so I applaud her for being willing to come back, kind of got burned, especially John Boyega as Finn.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's been extremely vocal about how bitter he is at Disney, and I think he's completely justified. He's very much just like, I got the sense that I was supposed to be the first Black Jedi in, well, to which I'm just going, Mace Windu? But like main character wise, I get.
Yeah.
And then they kind of just take that away. I completely believe that is where JJ was going to take the character, and then, as we've said numerous times, Rian Johnson just goes, I like your script, proceeds to just toss it in the furnace. Like, I'm so curious what the direction of the trilogy was, if there was one, before Rian took over, because I think there was bigger plans for Finn. Initially, we know for a fact there was never bigger plans for Oscar Isaac's Poe. He was supposed to die at the beginning of Force Awakens. I'm glad they kept him around. maybe give him more to do. But yeah, I don't see Oscar Isaac coming back either. He's
No,
a much hotter commodity now than he was at the beginning of Star Wars. I remember like looking him up, going, okay, he was an inside Llewyn Davis, an Ex Machina, but Ex Machina I think was 2015 as well. I think. We're going. He's a bigger deal. John Boyega doesn't really want to come back for this. The original trilogy people are either dead in real life or dead in canon, so you can't bring them back really. You'd be like, you can bring back Force Luke. I don't think Luke wants to be connected to this sequel trilogy any more than he has to be, because he's because he's been in the business longer. He's better at being subtle with his jabs, but rest assured, Mark Hamill definitely has some sly jabs at Last Jedi. A lot. I'm just going, maybe tone that down a little bit. But at the same time, I'm not the biggest fan of Rey. I do not fault Daisy Ridley at all for that. I fault the lack of planning and script writing. On the flip side, I completely understand, respect, appreciate, and I think it's awesome the impact that Rey as a character has in the Star Wars community for good. There's a lot of young girls that look up to the Rey character. They love Rey as their favorite character in their franchise. I think that's vitally important. I think that's awesome, even though that character is not for me. I do not need every character to be for me. We'll talk about another character in another franchise here in a little bit that all the characters actually in that movie do nothing for me. But it's one of those, I'm super happy if that is your thing, because you can enjoy that thing. It's just not for me. And that's the case with Rey. I was super excited after Force Awakens. I think they set her up for a lot of interesting things. Just not, they didn't follow through with it, which is, you know, most of the characters. I'm excited to see some characters return in that big Mando crossover, but we could talk about that in the next story here. But any other thoughts on these movies specifically, Josh, or Star Wars Celebration in general?
No, not really. It is interesting that they came out and kind of said that Rian Johnson's trilogy is not in active development, which
we've known,
but it was one of those that like, okay, at least you're saying it now and not just like not saying anything. There's a lot. I think Star Wars Celebration this year was better than last year.
Oh, absolutely.
They at least had something to bring this year.
Now, can we say the same thing about D23 soon?
Yeesh.